We've got to talk about these wild drone mysteries in New Jersey, these big Luigi Mangione updates, what really happened in that viral Subaru crash, big InfoWars, Trump and South Korea updates, and way more on today's brand new Philip DeFranco show. You daily dive into the news. So y'all, let's just jump into it.
This is a news show.
Hit lists and threats are being made right now after the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, according to an NYPD bulletin warning. With the bulletin reportedly noting that there are viral posts online sharing the names of CEOs and their salaries, as well as wanted signs of CEOs popping up around New York. With some of those signs reportedly saying United Healthcare killed everyday people for the sake of profit. As a result, Brian Thompson was denied his claim to life. Who will be denied next? Wall Street CEOs should not feel safe. Deny, defend, depose. With a memo noting that many potentially see the suspect, Luigi Mangione, as a martyr, and they view his alleged actions positively, and as a result, this event might have a, quote, capability to inspire a variety of extremist and grievance-driven malicious actors to violence. Some online applying this anger not just to health insurance executives, but CEOs of any kind. And reportedly, people at this level are taking these threats very seriously, with an unnamed bank executive, for example, telling CNN, the big learning is that if you want to kill someone, you can kill them. It's really scary, but true. It seems crazy that we're just figuring this out. And one security company telling the outlet that they received 70 requests from concerned companies within just 36 hours after the shooting. And the global head of intelligence at Kroll adding, corporate America is nervous. People are on high alert. Healthcare is the target now, but who's next? And all of this coming as support for Luigi and what he allegedly did not going anywhere, and if anything, even growing. Right, among other things, as of this morning, his Twitter account has hit nearly 400,000. There's even a Pop Crave style update account about him with 50,000 followers. Crowdfunding campaigns in his name have popped up as well. People are wanting to pay for his defense, which on that note, we're even seeing people trying to get Kim Kardashian to represent him, which one, likely not going to happen. That's not usually the criminal justice or criminal justice reform kind of avenue she does, especially as what's going to happen here is likely going to deal with a lot of class warfare stuff. But also too, Luigi already has a lawyer and his name is Thomas Dickey, a man who you might have seen by now because he actually spoke out in multiple interviews last night suggesting that Luigi will likely plead not guilty. And with that, among other things, questioning the evidence that the NYPD has.
My anticipation is going to be when and if that happens, he's going to plead not guilty. I mean, we've seen no evidence. We've seen nothing.
As you're fighting extradition, you're not actually arguing that the authorities in New York have the wrong guy, are you?
Well, I haven't seen any evidence that they have the right guy. I can tell you that much.
So with all that, as of this morning, there is reportedly new evidence, with law enforcement officials telling outlets like CNN that fingerprints found at the scene of the crime, they match Luigi's. And officials also telling news outlets that they found a notebook detailing plans on killing Thompson, with one passage allegedly saying, what do? You whack the CEO at the annual parasitic bean counter convention. It's targeted, precise, and doesn't risk innocence. The writings allegedly touched on using explosives, but he wrote that that would risk the lives of innocent people. Also, I will say on the note of more things that we're learning about Mangione, you had the Times talking about his past Reddit posts. I'm reporting that in years of posts on a Reddit account, he described a series of life-altering health problems, saying that his back pain worsened until a surgery in 2023 and that he had struggled with brain fog, but noting there that his only reference to insurance coverage in the post noted that Blue Cross Blue Shield had covered testing for irritable bowel syndrome. But for now, that is where we are, and while we wait to see what other information comes out and what general updates we see, I'll pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts with everything we're seeing here right now? And with that, at the end of today's show, I'll also be talking about your comments about the situation from yesterday. And then this one's a wild one. So before I started talking about news for a living, I had a million jobs, and among them, I was a customer escalation expert. So you call a place, you're not happy with how it's going, there was a chance you'd get me. But as someone who grew up in an unsafe home, I was fantastic at de-escalation and listening. But I have never dealt with someone like Michael Lee Murray, who is the man behind the wheel there. Because apparently what happened is that he woke up Monday morning looking to get a pair of wheels from a car dealership in Utah. So he goes out and he buys a used Subaru Outback for $4,000 and he leaves. But then a couple hours later, he returns complaining about mechanical issues that he claimed jeopardized his safety. So he demands a refund, but according to him, the dealership refuses, with the manager telling Fox that they had informed Murray before he bought the Subaru that the car needed work. But whatever actually transpired with the purchase, Murray was like, okay, if you're not gonna give me my money back, I'm gonna give you this fucking car back. Hence the of it all. Right, driving straight through the front of the building and into a desk, sending employees scrambling, with the men stepping out of the vehicle, giving in his words, all those motherfuckers and I told you so, and then exiting through the door he just made with his car. Right, and all of this after reportedly Murray actually warned the dealership that he was gonna do exactly what you just watched him do. With the manager also recalling their reaction to Fox saying, we're like, whoa, we don't need to do that. Sit down, we can figure this out, we can find a solution. With him also claiming claiming that they offered Murray his money back or a different car just before the incident. Now with this, luckily no one was hurt, even though 7 salesmen were near the front door when the car came bursting through. Though of course, there was damage, right? The dealership suffered an estimated $10,000 in damage. And as for Murray, he ended up getting arrested and released yesterday. And in fact, Inside Edition already grabbed this guy for an interview.
I was just really angry. I was upset about my money. I kind of blacked out for a second.
But Michael, in what universe is it okay to do this?
You know, I know I probably shouldn't have done it, but I guess I just hit a breaking point.
And so now he's facing 1 felony charge of criminal mischief that carries 1 to 15 years in prison, 2 misdemeanors for reckless endangerment and economic interruption, and tens of thousands of dollars in financial penalties. And then The Onion's purchase of Alex Jones's InfoWars, it just got blocked by Judge Christopher Lopez. Because if you don't remember, The Onion won that bid despite only offering $1.75 million, which was far less than the runner-up bid of $3.5 million by First United American Companies LLC, which is a company that is definitely not Alex Jones in disguise and just coincidentally is tied to shopalexjones.com. However, a big layer to this story is that The Onion's bid also included a pledge by Sandy Hook families to forego a lot of the money owed to them so other creditors could be paid up to $100,000 more than what was owed to them. So they hoped that that would sweeten the deal, but Judge Lopez wasn't having it, saying, "I don't think it was enough money and that the trustee did not maximize value in any way based on the record before me." However, a key thing is that what really doomed this bid was their actual procedures behind it, with Lopez here pointing out that there were serious concerns about the lack of transparency from the sealed bidding process and added, "No one should feel comfortable. I don't care who wins or loses. I care about the process." Because normally in these situations, there'd be a live auction for InfoWars and other things that Jones had to give up as part of the bankruptcy proceedings to pay the families of the Sandy Hook victims. But the trustee in charge of the process instead decided to do a sealed auction where bidders would submit a best and final offer. So, instead of everyone saying, "I'll do 100, 200, 400, 500, which appears to be in part why Jones and FUAC had been calling the entire process rigged, both in court proceedings and online, which is also something that the trustee behind the auction denied, with them also calling the allegations a disappointed bidder's improper attempt to influence an otherwise fair and open auction process. And one of the things there is that Judge Lopez also agreed that there was not any fraud, saying, "I don't think anyone acted in bad faith here. I think everyone was trying to buy an asset and put their best foot forward and play by the rules." So the big thing is that he did not like the rules laid out and felt that a different auction method with more transparency would have been better. And this is he also hit Jones and FUAC, saying that even their bid of $3.5 million was too low. So this means 1, we're likely back to square one, and 2, we're probably looking at a live auction, or with reports noting that Lopez doesn't want another complex auction, but he deferred to the court-appointed trustee on how to proceed moving forward. And while Jones is happy about the outcome, he's still claiming that this proves that there was fraud, which again, just to emphasize, does not seem to be the case according to the judge. It's just that he specifically does not think that the procedure used was sufficient. He's stopping the sale over technicalities, not fraud, and obviously, The Onion, they're upset with this outcome, with the CEO of their parent company writing in a statement, "We are deeply disappointed in today's decision, but The Onion will continue to seek a resolution that helps the Sandy Hook families receive a positive outcome for the horror they endured." And this, as Chris Mattia, lawyer for the families, said, "The decision doesn't change the fact that soon Alex Jones will begin to pay his debt to these families, and he will continue doing so for as long as it takes. But as far as how long will it take and how it plays out, that remains to be seen right now." But then, taking a quick breather from the news, it's week 14 of football, and y'all, what a season it's been. And what's made it even more exciting for me is today's sponsor, Prize Picks. You can run your game all season with Prize Picks, and I definitely have been. Because Prize Picks is a fantasy sports app with over 10 million members, billions of dollars in awarded winnings, and they've made daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. And here's what's extra special this holiday season, right? Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December and over $30 million in rewards during Picksmas. It's easy, you just pick your players, submit your lineup, and you're done in less than 60 seconds. This week, personally, I've got Jared Goff for more than 255.5 pass yards, Saquon Barkley for more than half of a rushing or receiving touchdown, and Travis Kelce for more than 59.5 receiving yards. And if you haven't yet, click the link in the description, download the app today, and use code DeFranco to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when using code DeFranco. Make your holidays brighter with Prize Picks, the best way to add some real money action to your favorite sports. But then, this is a weird and wild one. New Jersey is currently being haunted by a fleet of mysterious drones, and literally no one knows who they belong to or what the fuck they're doing. And we need to figure out what the hell is happening because it is hurting people I care about and do conspiracy theorists. Right, so since mid-November, large unidentified drones have been spotted at night in around a dozen different counties. Well, very notably here, drones are legal in New Jersey for recreational and commercial use. Most of the ones that have been spotted seem to be much larger than what is typically available to hobbyists. And some people have reported seeing the drones all following the same flight path, some sometimes 5 at a time, with others describing them as pacing back and forth in the sky. And one US Congress member saying that on one night, law enforcement tracked around 50 drones coming to land from the ocean, while another dozen trailed a Coast Guard ship. And for a while, the drones were mostly spotted in northern New Jersey. But more recently, the sightings have expanded to southern parts of the state, areas along the coast, the suburbs of Philadelphia, and Staten Island. And this is there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to where they are. They've been flying over private property like people's backyards, above highways, and around important infrastructure like reservoirs, power lines, and railroads. And in fact, this influx of sightings, it's prompted the FAA to temporarily ban drones from flying over a military base in Morris County and Trump's Bedminster golf course. At one point, it was even reported that drones near a landing zone prevented a medical unit from picking up a person who was injured in a car crash. But again, as far as why these drones started appearing and who's operating them, that has remained a total mystery. Though with that, you have local authorities and the FBI investigating the matter. Now, with all this, at least 2 local military bases have also said they're not responsible for the drones, though that does not necessarily rule out other military operations. With us, for example, seeing some security experts telling the New York Post that the drones could be part of a top secret military program to test new technology. Right, the military has a long history of designing aircraft through so-called black projects, which are highly classified and require special access to even get looped in on. And this, as several federal lawmakers have also implied that the drones could be coming from foreign adversaries, with some pointing to the whole Chinese balloon debacle. With this, including Congressman Chris Smith, who represents New Jersey in the House. With Smith also urging officials to give the military authorization to shoot the drones down to learn more about them after personnel at a base told them that they didn't have the authority to shoot down the drones. Beyond that, we also saw another New Jersey Congressman, Representative Jeff Van Drew, claiming that high sources have said that the drones are actually from Iran, saying Iran launched a mothership that contains these drones. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones. But today we saw the Pentagon hitting back at that, with a spokesperson saying that defense officials don't believe that the drones are coming from a foreign entity or adversary, with them then going on to explicitly refute Van Drew's claim about Iran, adding, "There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States." Right, but also, as this is playing out, you have people saying, if top security and defense officials suspected that these drones in any way could actually be from another country, they'd probably be acting much more aggressively. But again, people pointing back to the response we saw with the Chinese balloon. And to that point, you have numerous authorities and elected officials, including the state's governor, repeatedly saying that the drones do not appear to be a threat to the public or pose safety concerns. But also, when asked if the drones present those threats during a congressional hearing yesterday, the assistant director of the Critical Incident Response Group for the FBI responded, "There's nothing that is known that would lead me to say that, but we just don't know, and that's the concerning part of it." But then, at the same time, this whole mystery surrounding the situation has created space for wild speculation and fostered conspiracy theories. Right, so it's unsurprising that so many law enforcement and government officials have expressed extreme frustration with this whole situation, and many are now demanding answers. With, for example, a group of nearly 24 mayors in New Jersey writing a letter calling on the state's governor to take more definitive investigative action and communicate more clearly with both law enforcement and citizens, arguing the lack of information and clarity regarding these operations has caused fear and frustration among our constituents, a general sentiment that's also been echoed by multiple Congress members from New Jersey, with at least one demanding an immediate public briefing from federal authorities. And hell, yesterday you had a state senator going as far as to call for a limited state of emergency to be declared over the drones. But ultimately, that is where we are with this right now. We'll have to wait to see what happens. But personally, my money is on time-traveling aliens from another dimension. Not because it's likely, but I think it would be the most fun outcome. It's almost the end of the year. I'm kind of over everything right now, and so at least that would be interesting. Then I could be like, oh, everything makes sense now. I live in a simulation. Human beings in the world, they've not gone crazy. It's just the simulation. And then, is this an incredibly concerning pro-corporate bias that, among other things, will destroy the environment? Or is this an incredibly smart move meant to incentivize American business that is actually going to bring about an economic boom? Right, that question kind of sums up all the coverage we've seen from the left, right, and center around this Donald Trump news. Starting specifically with this announcement that got a lot of attention this week, with Trump on Truth Social saying, any person or company investing $1 billion or more in the United States of America will receive fully expedited approvals and permits, including, but in no way limited to, all environmental approvals. Get ready to rock. Now, the specifics of Trump's proposal, they're unclear right now, but notably, dozens of energy projects proposed nationwide, they meet the billion-dollar criteria. And by singling out environmental approvals, Trump's post puts a spotlight on his plans to roll back Biden-era environmental policies, with that more directly and immediately affecting the population because it includes electric vehicle tax credits and stricter fuel efficiency standards. But also, besides that, Trump's transition team has reportedly been working on a controversial and wide-ranging energy plan. One that, among other things, would approve export permits for new liquefied natural gas projects and increase oil drilling off the coast and on federal land. plans. And the thing is, with that, to some degree, we've obviously already seen what Trump can do. With, for example, a New York Times analysis of his first term finding that he achieved the full rollback of roughly 112 environmental rules and others were weakened or partially dismantled. Though this also is it's unlikely that Trump can do everything that he wants through executive action alone, which is why, among other things, right now you have environmental groups claiming that this latest proposal is in fact illegal, saying that it is in clear violation of the National Environmental Policy Act, which is this 54-year-old law that requires federal agencies to study the potential environmental impact of proposed actions and consider alternatives. With also the head of the environmental group Evergreen Action telling the Associated Press, Trump is unabashedly and literally offering to sell out America to the highest corporate bidder, with them then describing Trump's proposal as an example of him putting special interests and corporate polluters in the driver's seat, which they say would result in more pollution, higher costs, and fewer energy choices for the American people. But also with that, there is actually some bipartisan support for permitting reform in Congress, with some saying the current often years-long approval process is just holding back progress. And with that, we're seeing now independent Senator Joe Manchin and Republican John Barrasso putting forward a plan that would speed up permitting for major energy and mineral projects, with them saying that their plan would actually boost energy projects of all types, bring down prices, create jobs, and allow the U.S. to continue as a global energy leader. However, this also, as critics say, that it just goes too far, with one progressive news outlet describing the bill as a brazen giveaway to fossil fuels, as well as Democratic Representative Raul Grijalva saying, checking off wish lists for oil, gas, and mining companies is not permitting reform, then calling the bill a dirty deal that would exempt some oil and gas drilling projects from federal review and let mining companies dump even more toxic waste on our public lands. And while we're gonna have to wait to see what happens with this specifically, this also hits on another thing, or the growing concern about how much influence the rich and wealthy are gonna have, not just on this one issue, with there being now more and more focus on the fact that Donald Trump has now tapped at least 7 fellow billionaires for positions in his second administration, with Bloomberg estimating that the combined net worth of 12 of Trump's richest appointees is nearly $400 billion. Now with that, I will say, 1, Elon Musk drastically moves the needle, though 2, it is still just a drastic difference comparatively, right? Not only does it surpass the net worth of Trump's first cabinet, which at the time was also the richest US cabinet ever formed, it is leaps and bounds more than Biden's cabinet, which reportedly is collectively worth around $118 million. A difference that's resulted in outlets like The Guardian, for example, saying, in a recruitment process that appears to mock his campaign's appeal to working class voters, the president-elect has brazenly tapped a gallery of mega-rich backers for key positions that, in some instances, will give them power to cut spending on public services that are used by the most poor and vulnerable. And that's also as we're seeing reports about concern about potential conflicts of interest, right? Because US ethics laws require people working in government to disclose assets and, in many cases, get rid of them. But notably here, during his first term as president from 2017 to 2021, some of Trump's wealthy appointees failed to fully follow the rules. And that, in addition to, while separate, Trump himself being criticized for not observing the tradition of presidents before him and distancing himself from his assets. But yeah, that is the situation at hand for this specific part, and it's kind of just a waiting game for now post-January 20th. Right? When we start to see what Trump and his cabinet try to do, what they're ultimately able to do, and what that looks like actually being played out. But then, are we gonna talk about big updates out of South Korea since that failed coup attempt? Because President Yoon has now been blocked from leaving the country. There have been impeachment attempts, protests, arrests, and a standoff at the presidential palace. And so let's break all of that down, starting with the impeachment attempt, which happened a few days ago. Because the opposition party tried to get Yoon impeached, but his party backed him up and they walked out of the National Assembly. And this notably, as only 8 people from Yoon's party would need to walk away from him to get to that 2/3 of the votes to suspend Yoon's presidential power. With that, obviously putting the People Power Party in an awkward position, and it kind of shows how much they want to hold on to that power no matter what. Reportedly, you have lawmakers within the party upset at Yoon for declaring martial law, but this is they also don't want Yoon to be ousted because they fear that they'll lose the presidency to a liberal. But with that, the opposition is still confident that they will eventually be able to impeach Yoon, with the leader of the Democrats saying, "We'll surely impeach the president who is the greatest risk to the Republic of Korea. We'll surely bring this country back to normal before Christmas Day or year's end." Now with that, the lack of impeachment or even an orderly transition like Yoon's party says that it wants has fueled protests within Seoul. With us seeing things like on Saturday, tens of thousands of people turning up in front of the old royal palace to demand his resignation, with a belief that this could just continue growing and growing. Also, as the days have gone on, more information surrounding the coup attempt is coming out, with us seeing things like military leaders claiming they had no idea that this was going on, and instead it seems to be that a small group close to the president planned this, some of which have actually been arrested, including the defense minister, who, speaking of which, he tried to, we'll call it, remove himself from the situation, if you know what I mean, after his arrest. Also, speaking of arrests, right, the biggest one would be Yoon himself, which would be very difficult as he's still in power. But there's also, in the past 24 hours, getting to see an example of why that's the case, right? Because police actually tried to carry out a warrant and raid the presidential palace, which put the guards there in an awkward spot of having to stop the police. And so this turned into a bit of a standoff before the presidential office decided to hand over just a few documents to get the police to go away. But also, this is many other offices were raided as part of the investigation and will likely show the extent of who knew what leading up to to the coup attempt, with one of the things that investigators are looking into being whether they can charge Yoon and the others with rebellion. And that is huge, right? Because that's an extremely serious charge in pretty much every country, and in Korea, that could result in a death sentence. Which, I will say, if that is how we saw this play out, Yoon would hardly be the first South Korean president to die because of their actions while in office. Plenty have been assassinated, and actually looking at their past, pretty much every president and ex-president has gotten into some kind of trouble for their time in office or been overthrown because of their actions. But as far as what the history books will have to say about Yoon, we'll have to wait to see. But then finally, today, let's end with a congratulations, and let's talk about yesterday. Starting with a congratulations to this week's SeatGeek prize winner, getting $500 towards any tickets on SeatGeek, which means you can go see your favorite artist, sporting event, or play, because there's like over 70,000 events to choose from. And for everyone else, that's right, SeatGeek and the Daily Dip are still giving away up to $1,000 in tickets, and you should definitely enter today if you haven't already. Just add code PDS to your SeatGeek app profile for a chance at the weekly $500 prize, no purchase necessary. And $1,000 prizes are available to Daily Dip subscribers who add code PDS newsletter, doubling entries and winning. So you're welcome, and also thank you. But then, like I said, let's talk about yesterday with some commentary. Starting with the fact that, once again, a lot of the comments were focused on Luigi Mangione, though I will say a lot of the focus here was on his back injuries. Right? Whether it be people talking about or connecting themselves to some sort of health injury and what they've been dealing with insurance. Or with the comments section peppered with comments like, as someone with chronic pain, I absolutely get why Luigi did what he did. Pain changes you in ways no one can prepare for. And as someone who's currently suffering from back pain caused by disc herniation, people have no idea how that can destroy you mentally. As well as his back issues sound very similar to what I had surgery for back as a teen. It was debilitating and I still have pain from time to time. The major difference between us, though, is that my entire surgery was covered by our public health system in Australia, and my parents didn't have to pay anything, even though my surgeon was one of Australia's best. I can't even imagine not being able to get it fixed. If I hadn't had my surgery, I would be in a chair by now. The whole situation has my sympathy for Luigi and everyone like him. And again, this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg, a small smattering of the comments with people talking about specifically their back pain issues or their back injuries, as well as just having to fight with their insurance companies to get things like insulin. Though I will say something that kept popping up in a lot of those comments was chronic pain. Right, with people like Luna Beth sharing, for example, people really can't understand what living with chronic pain is like unless they've experienced it. It affects absolutely every facet of your life. You disconnect with friends and family because they can't understand, and you can't be honest about how you're doing because you don't want to be a constant downer. Even if they're the type of people who love you unconditionally, it'll eventually be too much. Everything you do hurts, so you have to be careful with foreseeing if something is worth the pain it'll be/cause. I don't even date anymore, as it's kind of impossible with dating apps and I can't go out to meet people anymore. The only positive is that the chronic pain community is awesome, especially online when you're homebound like I am. It's like my first step advice for when people get a chronic pain diagnosis, as it's incredibly isolating on multiple levels. And I will say it was comments like Luna's that I connected to probably the most. I do not currently have chronic pain. It is a massive fear of mine. It is very likely in my future. I have PKD. And on the note of chronic pain, while obviously it's from the outside looking in, like I've seen how that's changed my dad. He has PKD as well. He'll say the same thing. He is a drastically different person pre and post chronic pain. And just also watching everything he's had to go through currently and pre-Affordable Care Act, like that has drastically changed my opinions regarding the healthcare industry and insurance, which is why, once again, while I could never endorse or support a fucking murder, it's why I understand why so many people are having the reactions that they are having right now. Though I will say, bringing it back to the situation and the focus at hand here, it will be very interesting to see this story and narrative, how that gets further fleshed out with the more information we get about what did or did not happen with his injury. And again, as much as the grifters out there have been trying, because I guess they eventually got their marching orders that are trying to turn this into a left versus right thing, it's not. That said, I do think they'll be somewhat successful in pushing that narrative, because unfortunately there are a lot of people out there that it kind of feels like they're just kind of waiting for their marching orders on what they're supposed to think. Whether that be consciously or unconsciously, it's probably different for different people. And I think something that hits on why we've seen people on the left and right reacting in a lot of the same similar ways, kind of represented in this comment, which reads, "The sad thing is how much was spent and done hunting down the killer of a CEO, and yet we never see the same effort for common everyday folks. There are essay kits that will never be reviewed, but the New York City and federal government throw all the time and effort at finding the killer because the person murdered was rich." As well as me personally, I'm glad that the conversation has shifted to the direct impact that healthcare companies have on families. It isn't about left or right, it's about all of us wanting better. Though with that, I will say the cynic in me believes that this kind of blast, this pop-up of social consciousness, I do believe that it will be short-lived. Those that look to divide by constantly slamming down on culture war issues, they are very effective. But on that note, that is where your Wednesday evening, Thursday morning dive into the news is going to end. As always, thank you for lending your eyes and ears for my stupid little show. For more news you need to know or you might find interesting, YouTube thinks you'll like this. But either way, just remember, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.